Good afternoon, folks. Let's do a quick refresher. Which one's the fastest database for traces? Anyone? All right. I'm from FinBox, and we're trying to solve complex problems with simple solutions. I am Kushal. I work as the principal architect. I basically work with the information security team and the engineering team. So, what do we do? Let's talk about that. Uh, FinBox is a platform which is, we call ourselves SaaS for lending. For example, we have Atlassian for, let's say, workforce management. We have tickets on Jira. So, what does SaaS for lending mean? We have customers who are lenders or banks. So, we have Kotak, we have Aditya Birla. You would see a large part of these folks giving a lot of loans outside in the market. So, as a fintech SaaS platform, we give them platforms where they get a web UI for their end customer. So, let's say you want a loan from Aditya Birla. You can get onto the platform, and the moment you start applying for a loan, it's actually FinBox powering the entire journey. On top of that, when we are powering loans, there are a lot of attributes about the end customer that needs to be tracked. We need fraud analytics on top of it. We need to do KYC. We need to pull your CIBIL reports or your bureau reports from the bureau data and do a lot of analytics. Now coming to digitization in India into the fintech market, what we saw is platforms wanted to give or publish loans faster. And in order to do that, we had to churn a lot of data to understand if you are eligible for a loan. Would you default in the future? Will you be able to pay all your EMIs in the right time? And these are things which need quick decisioning. So FinBox came up with, it's been around 6 to 8 years that we've been in the market. FinBox came up with intelligent credit analyzing, intelligent credit scores. We started doing underwriting, and we actually have a product called Sentinel, which does underwriting as a SaaS platform. If you understand canary deployments, our SaaS platform does canary deployments with ClickHouse and with Sentinel. All right. So these are the products that we do. And today, the journey that we are trying to explain is with a small team size. For example, there's 3 people in my team. How do we power data warehousing of all this data? We are doing around 8,000 requests per second. So how do we churn all this data, and how do we model around it? How do we data warehouse it? And how do we generate quick analytics out of it? Let's move ahead. The challenges, I've already talked about these. We are doing fast writes on the databases. Earlier, we used to use Dynamo also. We've been using Redshift before this. So fast writes, but quick analytics. How do we solve that? A complete data warehousing solution without any external tool. So for example, we use, in general, the previous tags, we would use Airflow for orchestration. We've even tried AWS Lambdas for orchestration. How do we read data from a source to a sink, or rather, how do we transfer the data from a source to a sink? And in the general stack or the old stack, you would use a lot of softwares or a lot of products. You would start building up teams to manage all of those products. Those were the pain points. And again, how do we stay frugal? So with ClickHouse, this is the first pipeline. I'm sorry, ClickPipes was not available back then. So this is the pipeline that we have. A very basic Debezium CDC. Most of our data folks would know about that. Pushing data to Kafka. Vector.dev is an interesting software. Datadog uses, it was written by Datadog, and it is a extremely lightweight software that moves data from one place to another. We use that. It also has VRL, which is another vector remap language. We use that for transformations. Gives us basic transformations. That's enough for this pipeline. And in the end, we're still moving data to ClickHouse. So for the data folks, that doesn't end here. When do we do data modeling, or how do we do it? In the previous stacks that we've had, we would pull data from our data warehouses, we would churn it and then insert it to the data warehouse again, or we'll pull data from our data lakes and do that. So the question again here was, how do we do it in one platform? And ClickHouse gave us the answer. We made a 3-layer architecture. The first layer is the place where all the raw data has been ingested, and that's the layer which we also use as a dictionary. The second layer is a dense layer. We have around 4 to 5 layers of materialized views as projections, and all the heavy data computing is happening here. So, for example, the first layer of your data would have normalized data because that's what your application databases are good for. So, when you sync the data, it is normalized. So, the first layer has that. The second layer, the first layer in the second layer would have, we would be doing denormalization there. We would start getting values from the previous layers and start having denormalized data. That's what we need for reporting. That is what we need for future aggregations because we want to avoid the joins. So pre-computation is happening here. There's a very, very dense layer. You can think of it as the dense layers in neural networks. The third layer is the presentation layer. It's a layer where we try to avoid computation or heavy computation. All the aggregations are happening in the previous layers. It's a small depiction of the architecture that we have. So what this gives us is a unified layer, a unified platform where anybody would be, or rather the data folks, the data engineers, even the software engineers have started using this in our organization. It gives us a unified platform to orchestrate the entire data modeling, right? Moving on. So once you've figured out data modeling and once you figure out data pipeline, you need monitoring, you need alerting. And again, ClickHouse did a good job for us. We have, so if you've seen the presentation layer, it has refreshable materialized views. That gives me the power to have data at its own intervals. So that becomes a client offering to our customers also. We can monitor those with inbuilt monitoring tables that ClickHouse has. For the other ones, for example, your incremental MVs, we have the query views, the logs. Plus, there are system logs also that we can always go through. And that also gives me latency. That gives me the number of rows that each query goes through. And that is what was important for us. In fact, I was having conversation with one of my fellow speakers. How do we optimize a query in ClickHouse? And that was most important. If you see, storage and compute are two different layers here. And if we are optimizing, we have to think about memory, we have to think about the amount of CPU or compute that we are using. What we understood, and we've gotten a lot of help from the solution architects at ClickHouse, is the order by segment in the create table. That helps in filtering out irrelevant data from your select queries. So we've done a lot of analysis over there, and we figured that if we can reduce the number of irrelevant queries in a scan, that helps me with reducing the memory usage and hence also reduce the compute cost. So we've done a lot of experiments, and we've achieved some beautiful results with ClickHouse. This talks about the unified experience. So like imagine if you were orchestrating through Airflow, you would have to give your data engineers the access to Airflow to understand how their pipelines are working. Right now, they can just write a query and figure out the performance. To close down on what we have been doing, the target was to solve complex problems, but with simple solutions and with a smaller team. Yes, we've had wins on cost. We've gotten 80% reduction on the cost, and you've seen the same numbers or similar numbers in the entire platform. We've done so because it's a smaller team. Managing the team obviously becomes easier, and there's less information. Like there's no Chinese whisper happening. The 3 people in the team, they can work very, very closely. So yeah, team optimization. The architecture is simple, yes, There is a little bit of operations heavy when we start building dense layers. So we are trying to work towards that. But even then, the architecture is simple because it's SQL in the end. If we go through the documentation, then we start understanding how to optimize each query, and that helps. But again, SQL. So, yep, SQL-based observability across the pipelines. This one's for comparing the other tools with ClickHouse, but we've gone through most of the points. Instead of having multiple tools to solve our problems, we're trying to solve everything in a consolidated platform. Helps with my team size. We do not need cross-functional teams who are trying to speak or talk between each other to solve one single problem. The problem was data warehousing. Yep. And the team's small. We have. All right. So what's next for FinBox with ClickHouse? We come from B2B platforms and we are solving SaaS, but for fintech. Fintech in India is a highly regulated process or an industry, and we have RBI setting up the guidelines. So for a B2B space, for example, because we are working with again NBFCs and lenders, and banks, the data needs to reside in their cloud. But again, we are SaaS, right? So we can be multi-tenant, we can be a single tenant. Now, how do we transfer this data from our cloud to their data warehouses? That's something that we are trying to explore. Again, because we want to use the same platform, we're trying to see if this is possible. Although it is possible, we are still in the POC areas. So how do we transfer data from one data warehouse to another? Can ClickHouse do it selectively for the customers from a unified platform? That's one of the problems we're trying to solve. We want to ride the AI wave, obviously. And ClickHouse did release MCP servers. We do a lot of dashboarding for our customers. They have their analytics on top of that. But there's a constant need for a separate kind of analytics. Let's say they want a different product funnel. They want a different kind of report. Can we do that with the MCP servers? We are exploring that. This one's, again, with data privacy coming in, and with FinBox, we've been very, very strict with data privacy. From the very first day when we started ingesting the data, it was anonymized, first of all. So already complying to a lot of data privacy laws that are there in the global space. Oh, by the way, we are in Southeast Asia also, so we have to understand GDPR. So yes, with ClickHouse, how do we solve row-level security? So this is tenant-based. So a customer is a tenant, and the end customer, the user, is the actual row in the database. So how do we solve a row-level security for tenants? That is, again, something that we are trying to explore. All right, that's what we've been doing at FinBox. I have the team members here, Raghu and Bala. I think they didn't join today, but anyways, if we have questions, we can take them outside. This is FinBox. Thank you.